Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got a knife review for you right here, right now. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more knife videos. I have a whole playlist of them, and I have other videos like flashlight, EDC, locking mechanism videos, etc. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get right into it. This is the Boker Kalashnikov XXL. Look how big this knife is. It's massive. It's got to be in hand to truly understand the knife's length. You see it online, you read the specs, hear the specs that I'm about to tell you, and you're like, yeah, it's big. But you get it in hand. Oh, this is a massive, massive knife. It's actually, I'm stunned it's so huge. If you know me, you know I like the big knives, like the XL size big ones. I like them. I think they're cool. I think they're fun. Are they more useful or practical than the smaller ones? No, they're not, but they're better for defense, and they got a lot more capability. Rather have too much edge than not enough. So not only is this knife absolutely massive, it's a full-blown auto. It's an automatic single action plunge or button lock knife. It's on a coil spring, and it's huge. Let's get the specs out of the way first. Retails at $74.95, but you can get this for about $59.95, around the $60 range at Blade HQ. There's a few sites, few and far between, that sell it. It's kind of trickier to find autos on the standard shops, you know, like eBay or Amazon or something. But if you go to knife-specific shops, you'll find these things, generally speaking, $60. Blade steel is D2. Handle length is 5.875 inches. Blade length, 4.75 inches, making the overall length 10.625 inches. Weighs 6.42 ounces, according to the website. The cutting edge length itself, is 4.5 inches. So 4.5 inch cutting edge, but a 4.75 inch blade. There you go. Where do I start with this knife? It's just a really cool, fun, fondling blade. Not a huge fan of automatics or assisted knives or anything like that. I don't really care. Manual knives you can flick out fast enough, if not faster than autos or assisted knives. So I like having the option to open it up slowly, but I don't really care. If it's done successfully, I don't mind it. I think it's cool. They're cool, fun knives, and they're absolutely useful too, so long as it is a good quality, reputable knife. And this one is. Been using this for quite some time now, and I'm a huge fan. I love the big knives, but boy howdy, I like how this one's also an automatic. It's pretty much approaching the Cold Steel XL size knives. This is pretty much the exact same length of the Cold Steel Voyager original model, not the new one. Original, without the stainless liners in there, without the triad lock. It's about that exact length. It's just a hair shorter than the new Voyagers in the XL, but it's about the same length as the old ones. So there you go for a size reference. I'll bring in some other knives later as the review goes on, so you can see what I'm talking about if you cannot visualize that. Short version of this review, this is a great knife for the money, and it's also a very fun, over-the-top knife, but it also has its uses. Again, $60, even $75, I would still call this worth it if you had to pay its full retail price. D2 is an excellent steel. I would actually put that at upper mid-tier. Very good wear resistance, gets razor sharp, holds an edge for a very long time. It's just, there's nothing obviously wrong with it, and it's not too expensive to work with either. So I'm really surprised it kept the cost so low on such a massive knife. Again, $60. Even if this were not at an automatic, if you don't like autos or anything, this is still a great knife for the money. It's kind of simple, kind of basic looking. I think it's beautiful in its own right. Not very extreme, no, but it's going to be comfortable pretty much for anyone. It's not going to be uncomfortable for anyone, I don't think, unless you have really small hands. But this is one of my favorite knives ever now. I always looked at the Boker Kalashnikovs for a long time. I knew about them for probably over a decade now, and I just never really pulled the trigger on one. I thought they were cool, but I was like, it's an automatic. I don't really care that much. I like manual knives. I'm a manual folding knife guy. But when I heard there was an XXL size, I was like, let me check that out. And then I saw this one, saw the price, and I was like, yep, bought it, and I loved it when it got in. Absolutely love this thing. Again, we have two interesting things going for it. The automatic feature and the fact that it's massive. Oh yeah, third thing, it's affordable, and you have a really good blade steel. They could have threw AUS 8 or ACR13 MOV or 420 HC on here or something, and I think most people wouldn't really care that much because they're so drawn to the fact that it's an automatic and it's big, and it's not a super cheap, crappy knife from some company you've never heard of before, which is where you want to be careful with automatics. You want to make sure you get a company that knows what they're doing and is doing it properly. So this knife covers all the bases. It's not a toy, it's not a gimmick. It is absolutely useful despite it seeming like a bizarre, young boy's knife. Like, oh, it's automatic and it's got almost a 6-inch blade on there. Like, it just sounds just nuts. But it's functional and it's affordable. It's just such a great deal. If you like big knives, like automatics, you gotta get this one. It's a match made in heaven. Maybe you just like one or the other. You may really like it too. It's absolutely useful. No gimmicks here. It's no joke. Love it. It's very simple looking. It's comfortable enough. We have 2 aluminum handle scales here. Pin construction, so it's going to be easier to clean. I think that's a good thing for an automatic knife. Carries fine. I don't mind this pocket clip. It's kind of bizarre looking, kind of wavy. Some people think it kind of looks cheap. Is what it is. I don't mind it. I don't know if the wave has any feature other than adding a little bit of extra grip. It's like very, very wide jimping, we could say, on the pocket clip right there. But here, the tip of my index finger anyway fits nicely within these grooves here, so maybe that's what it's for. I like how it pinches down right here. Very distinct positive snap. Like, that's where it's going to grip on your pocket. It doesn't have the whole, raises up and then slowly or gradually turns into the pinching portion of itself. No, we have a distinct line that then pinches down. The advantage is it's going to be easier to get in and out of your pocket. The disadvantage is it has a potential to be a little more loose, and it could snag on other things like seat belts and such a little easier. I haven't had that happen to me before, but that is a disadvantage to consider. Pocket clip's great, though. I can throw it in and out of my pocket very easily with just one hand. Loop over clip, it's very quiet, I should say. It's hard to see it. People may think this is like a pen or something on you, but it's a big old folding knife. It's really cool. I like this texturing they have on here. It kind of looks like rocks or something. For aluminum, it's actually not that bad. It's kind of slick compared to an FRN handle or something, but let's say it's as textured. It feels as grippy as an FRN handle that has basically no grip on it whatsoever. It's about that level, which is kind of impressive for an aluminum handle. I'm going to assume they anodized it black, so it shouldn't wear too easily on you. Aluminum has the advantage of being capable of being anodized. That's pretty awesome. I like these, I don't know what you even call these. They kind of look like speed bumps to me. I'm assuming they're also made of aluminum. I think they just stick them on there. I don't think it's a separate cutout. I don't know how the manufacturing process is, and I don't care. I like them. Adds a little bit of grip, just a little something, because they are keeping in mind it is an aluminum handle. So, got some jimping up here on the spine. Some down here toward the butt and on the butt of the handle. So that's all well and good. Actually, it functions pretty well. It doesn't look like much, but it's just sharp enough. Do I care? Not really. I don't really care for jimping that much, but I'd rather have it than not have it. Aligns with the blade spine too. That's cool. Kind of unnecessary, I think, in the spot. But maybe. I don't know. Who cares? And then, yes, it does work on the bottom as well. Even though I think it's kind of gimmicky. I wouldn't move my thumb in this direction, but who cares? It's nice having it. And if you're holding in that position, my middle finger happens to rest right in the indentation in the pocket clip. So there you go. If you want to use this reverse grip, it's absolutely functional for that. Natural grip right here for maximum. Or maximum reach is probably going to be down here. And you could throw a lanyard on there if you wanted. I wouldn't go any lower than that, though, unless you had a lanyard. This is going to be the standard grip in this simple choil right there. I wouldn't choke up any more than that. So you have a handful of different options to hold this in because it is a big knife. Comfortable, simple. It's a coil spring. So there's a coiled up, thick old piece of steel around where the washers are. Very simple. We have a plunge lock or button lock, we call this here. It's literally just a hunk of steel. If you're familiar with shotguns or guns in general, it's kind of like a crossbow lock. Hunk of steel you can see in the cylinder right there. It widens up, and that is keeping the knife in place. It's just not allowing it to move in the opposite direction because of the way the tang is shaped in the blade there. And the blade is on the coil spring. It's wound up. It's ready to go. It wants to fire out, but this piece of steel in the button lock is blocking it, as you can see there. But when you release it using your force, it frees the blade, and then the coil spring moves in the direction the tension is going toward. And there you go. Because it is attached to the tang of the blade, that's what flies it out. So it's extremely simple. You're literally just freeing up some space in the locking mechanism right there and allowing the coil spring to move, which is also rotating the blade. And then the same button lock goes right back into place as if it were closing it. As you can see there, look very closely at it right there in the middle of my thumb. Goes back into place, and because of the way the knife's shaped, it also blocks it from negative force closing it. And then we have a stop pin right there, which stops the positive force from having the blade over travel. Extremely simple. And on another note, there is another cylindrical spring within the button or plunge lock there that's also causing it to move that way. It's extremely simple. That's how it works. You can take the coil spring out of here, and I tested this, and use this as a manual button lock if you wished. Button lock knife, I should say. It'll lock into place just like that. I wish I filmed it, but I didn't. lock into place. You can clear the space by pushing the button lock right there, and it won't fly out like that unless you give it a wrist flick, and it's very fast actually. It will lock open and close just like this. It just won't move for you like that. You'll have to give it a little wrist flick, but I actually contemplated keeping it that way. I was like, I think I liked it a little more. If you don't like automatic knives, but you really like this one, you like its shape, you like its length, maybe you can't have automatics, whatever the case is, you can take the coil spring out and use it as a button lock knife. How cool is that? If someone stick a thumb stud on there, I would recommend it too, but it's just really exciting to me. We have a great blade steel. It's a good looking blade, I think. Simple, but it looks like a combat knife or something if it were a fixed blade. It looks like a fixed blade to me. Kind of. Sort of, not really, but comfortable, useful, little heavy, but it's really not that heavy at all for the size of knife you're getting. The button lock does require some skill to utilize. You really gotta press inward there with the tip of your thumb rather than relying on the fat of your thumb. It's gonna be a lot more difficult to do that. I can't. If I use the heel of my thumb, I can also open it that way, but the tip is gonna be the most, I think, casual way to do it, or the fastest way anyway. Flicks out every single time. It does have a little bit of side-to-side play. It is noticeable, actually. It's not the best lockup, and mine has a little bit up and down too. I don't know if they all do. I don't think they should, but it's not the most impressive lockup. It's a little loose. It's probably just kind of crudely put together. It's a very simple knife. We have 2 aluminum handle scales. Throw some pins in there. The button locking mechanism as well as the spring, and then the coil spring goes to the washers. It's a relatively simple knife to put together. Maybe that's how they keep costs down. There's not as much quality control on the handles. I have no clue how the knife industry works as far as manufacturing goes. But from what I can say, other than the sloppy lockup, and you have to expect some slop with automatics. They're not going to lock up like bank vaults typically, but other than that, everything else is absolutely squared away. I just have nothing to really complain about. It functions every single time. It carries really well. It is swappable to the left side right there. It is a loop over pocket clip. Again, so it's hard to see in the pocket, which I think is good, but it's easy to extract from the pocket, which I also think is good. Little loose. I mean, if you really tried, you could probably break this if you stuck your fingers under there and tried to ruin it, but don't do that. The button lock being difficult to get to is a good and a bad thing. The good thing is it won't go off in your pocket as easily. Bad thing is if you're in a stressful situation and for whatever reason you had to use this knife to save your life or something, you have to do it with a little bit of precision. It's not going to, you can't just fumble your thumb around and expect it to get it open like a lot of knives you would. This one, you got to, with a lot of intention, try to open it up. So it's safer but a little slower unless you practice with defense knife. Yeah, as long as you know how to open it. Ironically, despite it being a fast automatic, it's going to be a little trickier and slower to open than knives that are not autos. That's what I find contradictory about automatic knives these days. You can open up manual knives faster usually. I think anyways. This is very precise. Manual knives, you have a thumb stud, maybe you also have a flipper. You can try flipping it out without touching the blade at all, etc. Automatics, you have one way and one way opened up, only to open it. And if it's a little bit tricky to get to, like this one, it might be a little slower than a manual. But it's still cool. I still like the knife a lot. I love the length to it. It carries well. It's just really cool. No, I don't carry it all the time. My manual knives and my smaller knives are a little bit more useful in the EDC world, but this is still an awesome knife, and because of its affordability and decent quality, it's a win-win-win. Really cool knife, one of my favorites ever. Looks so nice next to the big old cold steels and the Spyderco Resilience and the big boys from the other companies. Let's look at some knives that are similar to it. Speaking of cold steel, Recon 1, one of my all-time favorites. Big blade. Big knife, 4-inch blade on there. It's huge. It's actually a massive combat-looking, scary folding knife. But it's dwarfed. Dwarfed by the Kalashnikov here, XXL. That's insane. Already a big knife. This is a bigger knife. It's an XL size folder. How about CRKT Golf? Another big boy. Another black big boy that I think is cool looking, which is why I threw it together here. It's a little longer than the Recon 1. What about the Kalashnikov? Will it win? Oof, sorry. Got about 1.5 inches on you there. It's massive. It's a massive, massive folder. Isn't that cool? Those big old black blades. It's sweet. It dwarfs both of them. I'm actually shocked. Here's an old Voyager I was talking about. Oh, just a hair shorter, actually. The Voyager wins, but it's very close. It's a very similar length. So if you're familiar with these XL Voyagers, then it's about that length. You can expect it's long. It's a big, old, long knife. But can it defeat the XL Voyager new one? And we already know it can't, because we already know that the older Voyager is bigger. So there we go. Still awesome. It's still a massive knife. Absolutely love this thing. We'll keep it for a long time, I think, for so many reasons. Only issue, again, is lockup. Thanks for watching.